5,500 meters beneath the Philippine Sea, an autonomous underwater drone captured footage that has sent shockwaves through the naval archaeology community. The wreck of the USS Indianapolis, the ship that delivered the atomic bomb and then vanished in the worst shark attack in recorded history, has been photographed in unprecedented detail. And what the cameras revealed is beyond disturbing. You know the story, the official version. July 30th, 1945, a Japanese submarine torpedoes the Indianapolis. The ship sinks in 12 minutes. 900 men go into the water. Only 316 come out alive. 5 days of hell, sharks circling. Men going mad from thirst and exhaustion, the worst maritime disaster in U.S. Navy history. A tragedy we've been told to remember and move on from. Except the new scans tell a different story. They show a debris field that stretches over 600 meters. They show hull damage that suggests the ship broke apart with far more violence than anyone reported. And most unsettling of all, they show shadows, large shadows, moving in coordinated patterns around the wreck site, exactly like the survivors described 79 years ago. Oceanic white-tip sharks, still patrolling the grave of 879 men who never made it home. The question no one wants to answer is simple. Why are they still there? What keeps drawing them back to a wreck that's been sitting in darkness for nearly 8 decades? The answer buried in this debris field may finally explain and why the Navy tried so hard to make sure no one ever asked too many questions. The ship that carried the atom bomb July 16, 1945, Tinian Island, Northern Mariana Islands. The USS Indianapolis arrives carrying the most classified cargo in human history. Inside the specially built containers sits Little Boy, the uranium-based atomic bomb that will be dropped on Hiroshima 3 weeks later. The ship's crew has no idea what they're transporting. The armed guards who never leave the cargo hold don't explain. Captain Charles McVeigh is told only that his delivery is critical to ending the war. Nothing more. The Indianapolis completes her mission in record time. She offloads the bomb components and receives new orders. Report to Lady Gulf in the Philippines for training exercises before the planned invasion of Japan. The route takes her across 1,300 miles of open ocean, no escort vessels, no destroyer screen. Just the Indianapolis alone, cutting through enemy waters at 17 knots. Naval intelligence knows Japanese submarines are active in this area. I-58, commanded by Lieutenant Commander Makitsura Hashimoto, has been hunting these shipping lanes for weeks. But the Indianapolis doesn't zigzag. Standard evasive maneuvers that make a ship harder to target are considered optional. Captain McVeigh runs a straight course. He's been told the waters are clear. They're not. At 12:05 a.m. on July 30th, Hashimoto spots a dark shape against the moonlit horizon. He can't believe his luck. A heavy cruiser, unescorted, no zigzag pattern, moving at moderate speed. He fires 6 torpedoes. 2 of them strike the Indianapolis on the starboard side, right below the forward turret. The first torpedo blows the bow off. The explosion is so violent it vaporizes everything forward of the bridge. The second torpedo hits near the ammunition magazine. The communications equipment is destroyed. The radio room is flooded. The electrical systems are failing. 12 minutes after the torpedoes hit, the USS Indianapolis rolls to starboard and slips beneath the surface. Approximately 300 men go down with her. Another 900 make it into the water alive, wearing life jackets, clinging to debris, waiting for rescue that should arrive within hours. It doesn't. 5 days in hell. What happened next is the darkest chapter in U.S. Navy history. The men in the water expect rescue by dawn. Standard procedure requires ships to report their positions regularly. When the Indianapolis fails to check in, someone will notice. Someone will send help, but no one notices. The Indianapolis was traveling under radio silence. Her arrival at Lady Gulf isn't expected for days. The Navy assumes she's still en route. No one realizes she's gone. The survivors cluster into groups. Some have life rafts, most just have their vests. The sun rises on July 30th, and the water that seemed cold at night becomes an oven. Temperatures reach 85 degrees. Men start to blister. Dehydration sets in within hours. Then the sharks arrive, oceanic whitehips. They're attracted by the vibrations, the blood in the water, the thrashing of injured men. These sharks are aggressive, opportunistic, and relentless. They circle the groups, testing, probing, looking for weakness. The first attacks happen on the second day. Men on the edges of the groups start disappearing. One moment they're there, the next they're gone, pulled under without a sound. The water turns red, panic spreads. By the third day, men are hallucinating from dehydration and exposure. Some think they see islands and swim toward them. Others believe the ship is just below the surface with fresh water and food. They dive down and don't come back up. The sharks take them. The survivors who remain rational try to stay together, but the groups are fragmenting. Life jackets are losing buoyancy. Men are too weak to hold on. Some simply let go and sink into the depths. The sharks follow them down. One survivor, Woody James, later described watching a sailor beside him get attacked. The man screamed once, then went silent as he was dragged beneath the surface. Seconds later, the shark returned. It circled James twice, its eye tracking him, and then moved on to someone else. Another survivor, Giles McCoy, estimated that sharks took dozens of men every day. Not in a feeding frenzy, but methodically, one at a time. The sharks seemed to know the men were dying. They were patient, they could wait. On August 2nd, Lieutenant Wilbur Gwynn was flying a routine patrol in a PV-1 Ventura bomber when he spotted an oil slick on the surface. Heads, dozens of heads bobbing in the water, scattered across miles of ocean. He radioed for help. Within hours, rescue operations began. PBY Catalina seaplanes landed on the open ocean and pulled men from the water. Destroyer escorts arrived and threw cargo nets over the side. By the time the last survivor was recovered on August 3rd, only 316 men remained alive out of the 900 who had survived the sinking. The official death toll, 879 men, some killed in the explosions. Some drowned in the sinking, but most died in the water, from exposure, from dehydration, from drinking salt water, from madness. And from sharks, the Navy convened a court-martial. Not for the intelligence failures, not for the lack of rescue coordination. They court-martialed Captain Charles McVeigh for hazarding his ship by failing to zigzag. He was convicted. The surviving crew members protested. Even Commander Hashimoto, the Japanese submarine captain who sank the Indianapolis, testified that zigzagging would not have prevented the attack. It didn't matter. The Navy needed a scapegoat. McVeigh was it. He lived with the guilt and the hate mail from grieving families for 23 years. In 1968, he took his own life. It wasn't until 2000 that Congress exonerated him. 32 years too late, the official story ended there. A tragedy, a failure, lessons learned, case closed. Except that 5,500 meters beneath the Philippine Sea, the wreck had been waiting to tell a different story. The discovery that changed everything for 72 years, the USS Indianapolis remained undiscovered. Search expeditions in the 1990s and early 2000s found nothing. The coordinates from surviving officers were approximate at best. The Philippine Sea covers thousands of square miles. The wreck could be anywhere. In August 2017, a team led by Microsoft co-founder Paul Allen finally located the Indianapolis. Using autonomous underwater vehicles equipped with advanced sonar, they mapped a section of seafloor and found what every previous expedition had missed. A massive debris field at 5,500 meters depth, far deeper than anyone had expected. The initial footage was haunting. The ship's bell, still intact, the nameplate clearly visible. Ammunition scattered across the seafloor. Personal effects, shoes, helmets, the remnants of 879 lives ended in an instant. But it was the follow-up expedition in late 2023, that revealed something nobody anticipated. The team deployed AI-enhanced drones capable of filming in near-total darkness. These drones spent 300 hours mapping every square meter of the debris field, capturing over 1.2 million images. When marine biologists reviewed the footage, they noticed movement. Large shapes, 2 to 3 meters long, circling the wreck site in patterns that didn't match random ocean currents. The team reviewed hours of video and confirmed what seemed impossible: oceanic white-tip sharks, multiple individuals, returning to the site repeatedly across the weeks of filming. Behavior patterns consistent with territorial marking, as if the wreck site had become part of their hunting grounds. As if they remembered, Dr. Sarah Chen, a marine behaviorist from Scripps Institution of Oceanography, reviewed the footage and went pale. She explained that oceanic white-tips can live 15 to 20 years in the wild. These were not the same sharks from 1945, but sharks learn feeding behaviors from each other. They pass knowledge through generations. If the original sharks that fed on the Indianapolis survivors established this site as a feeding ground, their descendants would continue returning. Shark researchers know that these animals have extraordinary spatial memory. They can navigate back to specific locations years after their first visit. But what Dr. Chen found most disturbing was the timing. The sharks appeared most active during early August, the anniversary of the sinking. The same time of year when 900 men thrashed and bled and died in these waters. It could be coincidence, seasonal migration patterns, water temperature fluctuations, but the data didn't support those explanations. The sharks were there specifically, deliberately, as if some genetic or learned memory was pulling them back to the place where their ancestors had fed on the greatest concentrated source of human prey in recorded history. The truth nitrogen monoxide one wants to admit that 3D scans of the Indianapolis debris field revealed more than shark behavior. They showed hull damage that contradicted the official account. The bow section wasn't just blown off, it was obliterated. The torpedo magazine explosion created a blast radius that should have killed far more than 300 men instantly. Researchers analyzing the wreck's position calculated that hundreds of men, wounded and burned, went into the water with injuries that would have caused significant bleeding. For 5 days, that blood dispersed across miles of ocean, creating a chemical trail that sharks could follow from extraordinary distances. The survivors who described constant shark presence weren't exaggerating. The environmental conditions created a perfect hunting ground. Warm water, abundant prey, blood in the water, and no predators to compete with. For the oceanic white-tips, the Indianapolis disaster was an evolutionary jackpot, a feeding event so significant it may have altered the behavior patterns of every shark population in that region. And here's the part that haunts marine biologists. Sharks don't just hunt with their senses. They hunt with memory. They return to successful feeding sites. They teach their young. If the 1945 event imprinted this location as a prime hunting ground, that information could persist through shark generations for decades. The Indianapolis wreck isn't just a grave. It's a marked location in the cognitive maps of an apex predator. And the evidence suggests they're still checking it. Still circling, still waiting for prey that will never come again. The final question: the USS Indianapolis carried the atomic bomb that ended World War II. She completed the most important delivery in naval history. 879 men paid the price for those failures. They died in explosions, in drowning compartments, in 5 days of unimaginable horror, while sharks circled and command centers assumed everything was fine. The Navy court-martialed the captain and called it justice. Congress exonerated him 32 years after he killed himself. And now, 79 years later, autonomous drones are filming sharks that still remember, still return, still circle the grave of men who were abandoned by the institution they served. The wreck of the USS Indianapolis is more than twisted metal on the seafloor. It's evidence. Evidence of institutional failure, of scapegoating, of a tragedy that could have been prevented at a dozen different points. And evidence that nature doesn't forget what we choose to ignore. The sharks are still circling, not the same individuals, But the same species, the same behaviors, the same memory passed down through generations. They returned to the site where 900 men fought for survival and lost. They patrol the debris field as if waiting, as if the ocean itself remembers what happened here. And perhaps that's the most terrifying truth of all. We bury our mistakes in the depths and move on. But the ocean doesn't forget. The sharks don't forget. And the dead, scattered across a debris field 5,500 meters down, are still waiting for someone to tell their story honestly. If this investigation left you with questions, share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story where technology finally reveals what history tried to sink. The Indianapolis wasn't the only ship that went down with secrets. Stay tuned.